This is the Shotgun City Sheriff, the law himself, Clayton Clark.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Kennedy, a.k.a. Mr. Anderson.
This is the young Titan, Aaron Atlas.
Hey, this is Matt Brannigan.
This is the Warbound Hellhound Bo Sword.
This is your favorite drunken pro wrestler, a.k.a. the Bud Light Brawler, Dalton Davis.
This is Lizzie Six.
This is Jake Something.
And this is the jaw-jacking, back-cracking, God created all men equal, and then he made me the sequel, Rohit Raju, and you are listening to the Spot Show Podcast.
Spot Show Podcast.
The Spot Show Podcast.
Spot Show Podcast.
The Spot Show Podcast.
Spot Show Podcast. Hell yeah.
The Spot Show Podcast.
The Spot Show Podcast? Yeah, that's right, I stuttered. Shut up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Spot Show Podcast, an independent wrestling podcast with a few pit stops along the way. I, of course, am one of your hosts, the Dr. Seuss of the commentary booth, Dickie Wabash, and this guy sitting right over here. You look like you're
on your left, brother.
You look like you're in another dimension right now because you look so spaced out.
I'm just really comfortable in this couch.
Yeah, we've decided to not record in the studio anymore for some reason. We've moved out to the main hub of the studio, aka my house. That voice you're hearing, that's my co-host. That is Michael Madrox, the one-legged wonder. And I almost had you.
You almost had me?
Almost had
that
you.
Close, brother.
For those of you that don't know, we are currently in the middle of a WWE Premium Live Event draft where we drafted 10 superstars each. We are getting points based on their performances, but you're going to hear a little bit about that later because we've got bigger fish to fry right now, Madrox. This is part 2.
Wait a minute. 2 parts with Harker Dirge?
2 parts with Harker Dirge.
Oh my God.
Part 2 of my sit-down interview with Harker Dirge. We're going to get into it, Madrox. I'm telling you right now, this interview it just keeps getting better and better. It just keeps getting better and better with the stuff that this man has to say. If you have never had the chance to sit under the learning tree of Harker Dirge, then you are getting it right now with these 2 interviews.
It's a seminar.
If you've never or are never going to again listen to an episode of the Spot Show Podcast, which of course we hope you do, if you only pick 2, it's got to be these. But, speaking of this is, of course, the Spot Show Podcast. Every other week, Michael Madrox and I sit down and we talk about the world of independent wrestling, like I said, with a few pit stops along the way.
This is one every other week, brother.
Did I say
this
every
every week?
Oh, I'm saying I got enough of this going on in my mind. This is every week we sit down and do
enough
this,
of
man.
this, which needs a plug ski.
Oh, it's going to get it. Don't worry. Yeah. We sit down every week. We talk about what's going on in the world of wrestling and just the world in general. Sometimes we take a few pit stops. Sometimes we got guests like how we have Harker today. Listen, here's the thing. If you like what we're doing here, there's multiple avenues that you can take to support us. The big one, patreon.com/MadBash Studios. If you go back us at the $5 tier, you're going to get every single one of our shows early and ad-free. You're also going to get some exclusive content, exclusive behind-the-scenes photos, videos, all sorts of stuff.
Hours.
We've got to be getting close to about 100 hours of content over on the Patreon.
I think we're probably more than that, brother.
I'm going to have to sit down and look. I know that we've been pumping out quite the amount of content over there on the Patreon for you guys. Here's the thing. There's other ways that you can support us. MadBashStudios.com. You go there. You're going to find links to all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Go to that podcasting platform that you prefer, or go to all of them, really, and give us a 5-star written review. We would very, very much appreciate that. Now, we got some plug skis.
Ooh.
We got a couple of plug skis. You mentioned Enough of This. A new episode of Enough of This is available right now. We go over episode 3 of season 1 of Tough Enough, and this is the meme episode, the Triple H meme episode. Take a bump. Big man, you hurt? Big fucking deal. That's Triple H. Triple H is on this one. Yeah, I just want to let you know, but your nuts are hanging out. If you did that in the ring, I'd pop you for real. This is arguably the best. This season of Tough Enough just keeps getting better and better. Join us on that journey as we continue going through season 1 of Tough Enough. Also, the trailer, by the time that you guys are hearing this to the public, it is now available on our Facebook page. The trailer for Danville Dreamers Chronicles Dreamin' Ain't Easy. For everyone on the Patreon, it's already been available for about a week or so.
That early access, man.
Early access, we're telling you all about that. But yeah, you can check that out now on our Facebook page, facebook.com, MadBash Studios. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Elite Pro Wrestling and patreon.com/MadBash Studios, and you're going to hear about them right now. This episode is brought to you by patreon.com/MadBash Studios. Hey, you there, listening to this, here's what you need to do. You need to go to patreon.com/MadBash Studios. Not only is it the best way to support MadBash Studios, but it is home of dozens and dozens of hours of exclusive content. Not only are you going to get early access to MadBash Studios podcasts, Spot Show, and Enough of This, but you are going to get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos, videos, exclusive shows, such as Paid Show, such as Untitled Wrestling Commentary Show, and, of course, Past Bash. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/MadBash Studios, where every piece of content is unapologetically creative. This episode is brought to you by Elite Pro Wrestling. We all love live entertainment, right? We all love live wrestling, right? Well, what if I told you that there is a place that combines the entertainment and the wrestling live that we all love? Look no further than Elite Pro Wrestling. Whether it's in person in Odin, Indiana, or Washington, Indiana, or if you check them out on YouTube, Elite Pro Wrestling guarantees a quality show that allows them to live up to the name Elite. If you're feeling generous, go ahead and check them out on Patreon as well. If you back them, you're going to get early access to all of their shows before they hit YouTube. Again, check out EliteProfessionalWrestling.com. Oh, Madrox, we have got a gold mine of an interview with Harker Dirge here, but there's something that we need to cover before we get into it.
That ass beating, huh?
This will not take long. So we're just going to give some spark notes here. We're going to go more into detail about SummerSlam on Paid Show on Patreon. But yes, of course, Michael Madrox pulled out the victory, 210 points to 190 points. And this was the most roller coaster premium live event that we have had so far. I almost had you, and
you almost had me with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory.
When I saw them on screen, I said, there's a chance that I might pull this out. What killed me, of course, was Bayley losing the women's title, and then Sami Zayn. Really, the big one was Sami Zayn losing the Intercontinental Championship to one of your guys, Braun Breaker. So we were able to come back from that. Overall points, we are sitting right now at 835 for Team Madrox and 720 for Team Dickie. The gap is closing. I'm coming. And here's the thing. On Paid Show, we are going to, again, discuss this more, but it is now time to do what we said we were going to do.
The free agent draft.
The free agency, man. So, with that being said, before we get into this, we are also adding an addendum. You are able to drop one of your people right now. They will retain their points if they have any. You will not lose their points that they have earned you up to this point. And they will not be available to draft in the free agents draft. So, with that being said, don't tell me who. Are you going to be dropping someone?
Yes.
I will be dropping someone as well. So that means that instead of 3 picks coming up here, we're essentially getting 4. So to give you that little bit of a breadcrumb here, I'm not going to announce who I'm dropping. You're not going to announce who you're dropping. But, when we first did it, you had the first pick. So that means that in free agency, I get the first pick.
Oh, God.
And I am here to make my first pick right now. And then you're going to hear the rest of the Draft on Paid show. I dropped him early on because of an injury. And in hindsight, it actually wasn't a terrible drop. It was actually a good because I picked up Liv Morgan. My first pick in the free agency draft, Drew McIntyre.
Dun, dun, dun.
I am picking Drew McIntyre back up. He is now officially on my team. You are going to hear the rest of the Harker Dirge interview coming up right now in just a couple of seconds. Listen, we cover so much in this one. Harker's ability at making incredible gear. You know, we talk about his gear making philosophy, why he started doing it. We also talk about, you know, he decided to step away from wrestling back in 2016 and then come back. We ask him, well, why did you decide to do that? You know, like that. And he also decides that it is time to drop a couple of names, as if he didn't drop enough in the first one. Harker Dirge has got plenty of things to talk about. There is a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and stop blabbing. We're going to see you on the back end of this. Let's take it away to Past Dickie with his interview with Harker Dirge. Boy, did I really not necessarily bite off more than I can chew, because I knew that there was going to be a lot to cover with this. So welcome to part 2. Here we are with Harker Dirge. And there's the crazy thing about it is that we went a pretty solid on that first half, and I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface, because like you really are just a multifaceted guy if you think about it.
I hadn't thought about it.
You
If
should.
you say so. I believe you. I believe everything you say.
There you go. I'd be a good used car salesman, I think.
Parte dos, más contenido así.
You know,
Comenzamos.
That's what the original Dickie Wabash character was going to be, was a used car salesman style character, but I ended up not doing it.
Well, you didn't have a driver's license yet. Wouldn't be believable.
Yeah, that's actually not too far from the truth. So, you know, we were, you know, between parts, you know, we were just kind of, you know, shooting the breeze like we were. And like one thing about you that, again, like I said, you're multifaceted. I always talk about these Friday night Georgetown shows. That was one of the peaks of my career. I will sing the praises of those shows every Friday, every time I can. But the funny thing about those Friday night Georgetown shows is that every single person in that locker room was wearing gear that was made by Harker Dirge.
Darn near everybody. I started making gear. I don't remember what year that was, 2006 or 7. And I don't even remember what motivated me to do it. I think it was cheapness, because I thought I could do it cheaper. It turns out it's kind of expensive to make, and then you have to sell it for a profit. But yeah, I did. I started making it for myself, and I wanted different things, and cut out the middleman. I learned it. I was a hack. Kind of learned it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had taken a sewing class where she learned how to use a special kind of machine called a serger, and that makes a double tough stitch that you can use for the seams on the gear. Then that way it's not tearing apart in the middle of the ring, and your whatnots and crackers and Christmas crackers and jingle bells aren't falling out.
Yeah. Now, we talked about it on the first part, but that hustle that Adrian kind of smartened you guys up to when you were training. For those of you that did not hear the first part, what are you doing on part 2? But Adrian Street, of course, did he, well, you just said you're self-taught, but did he give you any pointers at all on the gear?
He'd have been angry if he knew I was making my own gear.
Really?
He wanted me to buy it from him.
Oh, fair, true.
I was a competitor now.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been happy about that at all. But that was my decision to make.
Yeah. I mean, like you said,
a financial decision. And then it became a good financial decision because I was making, what do the kids say? I was making bank. What do they call it now? The bag?
You had a bag.
I had the bag.
You had a bag on gear.
I was grabbing my bag.
No, that's not it. But
it's in
close.
my bag, brother.
Yeah, that's not my
bag, brother.
That's not my bag.
It's not
baby.
my bag, baby.
Swedish made penis enlargement pumps in me. This sort of thing is my bag, baby. I can't believe that like it took us this long to get to an Austin Powers reference. But like when did you like start to realize like, man, I could make some, as you put it, I could grab my bag on this.
Grab my bag in the bank.
Yeah.
I think when I started wrestling, when I started working regularly in Illinois, and I noticed the guys didn't have gear.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody had gear. And if they did, it was high spots, cheap stuff that was falling apart. And I thought, well, I could make it for them and sell it. And it just kind of went from there. So it was a New Breed Wrestling was a small little, well, that's where Jason V started. He was a Vendetta, weighed about 119 pounds, soaking wet. And I said, Jason, I could put you in some gear. Make you look like 125. It's all about the illusion.
One of my favorite stories, and we won't name names about your gear, is someone comes to you and they want Dolph Ziggler gear, which is, of course, the biker shorts.
It was a chubby guy that wanted it.
It was
I know
a
what
chubby
you're
guy.
talking about.
Yep. And he puts it on and he comes up to you after you like, so do you like it? And he's like, yeah, but I wanted it more like Dolph Ziggler. And then you're like, well, I molded it after Dolph Ziggler. You're being polite to the guy. And then he leaves. And then you turn to me and you go, Dolph Ziggler also doesn't have a gut hanging over his gear.
He sure doesn't.
No. And
but we're jumping ahead of ourselves. But
yes,
if you want to look like Dolph Ziggler, trunks don't always make the man.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of cardio.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a good diet.
Yeah, it does.
I called him Dolph Jiggler.
You did,
because he was chubby.
You were like, yeah, that's Dolph Ziggler.
I don't think it's politically correct to fat shame these days, and I would never shame somebody for being a little chubby. But if you're going to wear 3-inch trunks, you might want to look the part. We're getting ahead of ourselves. I started making gear,
sure.
so it was in the New Breed Wrestling, which was a small territory in Danville area. And I noticed none of the guys had gear, and I thought I could put them all in gear, and then they started buying it. And I thought I could expand. And then I used the beauty of the internet, the curse that I cursed earlier.
Like I said, there's good and bad.
You got to take the good with the bad.
You take them both, and there you have.
I saw this wide open lane, brother.
Yeah.
There was this wide open lane to make gear in the area and advertise it on the internet. And I started, it grew and it grew. By the time I was 10, I was 6 feet tall and a man among men. And I love my work and I love my play. And I ain't no fool at getting my way.
I love it.
Don't go messing with this country boy. He knows all the words. And if anybody's wondering what I'm on about, it's Hillbilly Jim's theme song, Don't Go Messing with the Country Boy. You can't hear it on the NBC Peacock network because of royalties and such.
Oh, man, how terrible
if you
are
look
the
it up
dubs?
on YouTube, you can see it. And Hillbilly Jim is a tremendous individual.
That's the thing is like sometimes on here on the podcast, we'll do reviews of like old Raws or WCWs or whatever. And like the network dubs are so terrible. But there was one that got us specifically that was really funny is Vampiro is coming to the ring during a WCW Nitro and they didn't dub over Insane Clown Posse, but but they had dubbed him over on the pay-per-view the night before. Is weird. But you
at that point, nobody was paying attention. But Hillbilly Jim was a good guy, but he didn't wear wrestling gear.
No,
if he had wanted wrestling gear, I would have known where to get it.
He could have come to Harker Dirge. He could have come to Harker Dirge.
A mighty fine gear for that mighty tall man. I made some mighty small gear for some guys that are getting action figures now.
Yeah, that was going to be, I was going to segue into that. Like, your gear is an action figure.
It's going to be immortalized.
That's got to be baffling to you. Like, that's got to be just like, oh my God, like, how did we get here?
It's cool, man. I'm not going to buy it. They're like $50. I'm not going to buy it.
Action figures.
I'm not going to mark out for something that I already did.
Yeah. For those of you that are unaware,
let's hip them up, man.
Yeah, there's currently a 2-pack that is coming out. It's Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, and it's an ROH throwback 2-pack, and you made Adam Cole's gear that is modeled after.
Adam Cole and O'Reilly.
Oh, you made them both. Okay.
I made them both. O'Reilly was the contact, and he ordered it for the team, and I made several pair of trunks for those guys, and there's the gear that they're wearing on the action figures, the gear that I designed and made. I mean, it's even got my font, my handwriting on it. On the back where it'll say O'Reilly and it'll say Cole. And it's a pair of gray trunks with green and black stripes, and then their names, and then their logo on the front. One had a palm tree, and one had a Canadian. You guess which is which, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I made that same gear for them in gray, blue, and black. This is the gray version.
That's insane. Like that, like.
But I think that he would call me ahead of pay-per-views and want me to make something like quick. And then eventually he wouldn't give me enough time. I said, dude, you've only given me 3 weeks to get these to you.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't, it's not magic. Like you got it. I'm sure that's time consuming.
Yeah. But up until that point, I made almost all of O'Reilly's gear and then some of Cole's. Cole's gear was tiny.
Really?
I've heard he's a small dude, but his waist was like 27 inches.
Oh, and why would you say was the average?
30 and up.
So, wow, he's definitely
like 20. He had like a 27-inch waist, and then the side on the tight was only like 3 inches.
Wow.
On the trunks. I thought, there's no way these are going to fit. They fit him like a glove.
That's almost like a full circle moment to see that, your gear's on an action figure. Like, I think that's cool. Like, I used to be.
Should be on me on my action figure. What are these guys waiting for?
Where is the Harker Dirge figure? I think we need one.
I think so.
If we could get, like,
I had a game card.
Oh, I forgot.
Let's forget about the gear. We did gear already.
Okay.
It was about the game card.
Yeah, you're immortalized on a game card. What is it's you
Phil
showed
Singer
me this.
Games.
Yeah.
Phil Singer Games, Legends of Wrestling. They branched off and started doing independent game cards, and I was one of the first 4 independents that they made.
Who were the other 3?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. They weren't as good as me. No, everybody's good in their own way.
Yeah.
You keep doing what you're doing out there. You're great. I love you. But you are the good ones.
You quoting something again there, Harker?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm coming up with that off the top of my head.
Okay.
You doubt me, I'll slap something.
No, I believe you. I believe you wholeheartedly. But
no, Phil Singer Games is kind of cool because they've really taken off. They've been around for 35 years now, actually almost 40. And they used to do Champions of the Galaxy card and dice game that was futuristic. And then and by 2003, they went into real wrestlers with King Kong Bundy and Greg Valentine, et cetera, starting it off. And now they have hundreds of them, to where the fact that they're one of the big contributors to. There's a Hall of Fame. Something else I don't think the people know about, that if you have people listening in the Midwest or anywhere, if people like to travel, every year there's a Hall of Fame inductions in Iowa. It's the Luthez George Tragos Hall of Fame that happens in Waterloo, Iowa every year. And it's in the Dan Gable Wrestling Museum. If you don't know who Dan Gable is, he's the greatest amateur wrestler this country's ever had.
The namesake for Chad Gable.
The namesake for a lot of those people. The Gable, Chad Gable and Gable Stevenson, who just
who just got released. Yeah. But
they do that, and they were main sponsor of that this year. They contributed $20,000 to that Hall of Fame based on selling these card and dice games.
So then your specific card is in.
So my card is part of that.
That's insane.
From like 2007.
I was going to ask what year that was.
Mine was I was so far in the old school that mine was in black and white. Now the cards are in color. For the last 2 years, they've been telling me they're going to make a color card of me, but they found other things to do apparently.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting.
Did you ever get any royalties from that, or?
No, it's volunteer, because what they do with the funds is then they give it to charity.
Oh, I should. Yeah,
they give to Hall of Fame, but they also get to Cauliflower Alley, who helps out a lot of wrestlers in need. And that's another thing to look into. Cauliflower Alley Club is coming up.
Yeah,
but this Hall of Fame is a cool thing, man.
Yeah,
anybody looks it up. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it's the George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, every July. They just did it this past weekend, and
I mean, that's cool.
I went there the last 2 years in person. I didn't make it this year because of an injury. I can't travel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, though, that you're a part of a Hall of Fame. You're, you are immortalized.
Well, I'm contributing. The company that I was part of was contributing.
Yeah. But, I mean, still, yes, something of you is a part of it. I mean, that's still, like, I can't say that anything I've ever done's in a Hall of Fame or anything. Maybe one day. But
what about that outhouse in Terre Haute?
Yeah, well, that's the wall of shame.
They're going to frame it.
Yeah, they absolutely
Small
are.
chart.
Another thing that that you have that
crude.
yeah, he's getting crude at this point. Another thing that you have that that I think is really fascinating. I remember you showing me this years ago. Is that you have an original Rob Schamberger piece of art of you that I think was pretty cool. That you have.
Yeah,
that.
it's a bloody picture. It was I don't even remember why he made it. It was for some independent comic book. This is a funny thing. There's stuff out there of me I didn't even know. Somebody smart me up about it. They said it was on an independent wrestling comic. It was the cover. He must have just found it was a picture of me. It was a selfie I took.
So just found your likeness and been like,
it was a bloody shot that I took. I had just had a lumberjack match with Sabu where I got a lot of color, which means blood. And as a matter of fact, some of it was hard way. I did some of it the ordinary way, but some of it was a hard way, which means you got hit really hard. Sabu wanted to try chopsticks for the first time as a weapon. He goes, "Let me know how these work out. I'll let you know." He took those chopsticks and they broke inside my head.
Well, I mean,
and he's good. He's good. He didn't. That was.
It
just
wasn't his fault. It was just
that was a bad weapon to use. They were too brittle, and when he touched me, they broke off. And
well, I mean,
some of that caused natural blood.
Yeah, and now you look at it, and skewers are a very common thing that a lot of people are doing.
I prefer they didn't do that. There's no artistry to that. But anyway, I thought the color was good enough. I took a self shot with my camera, which I rarely ever do, and then I put it on the internet. And then I found out that he painted it.
Yeah,
and then somebody used it for the cover of some independent comic book.
Do you brought up a really solid.
Let's talk about artwork.
Oh, yes, please.
The Phil Singer Games Legend of Wrestling card was drawn by Travis Heckel, who, if any of you are internet fans and watch the Jim Cornette channel, Travis does all of the thumbnails for Jim Cornette's videos.
And that's one of the biggest wrestling podcasts or shows or podcasts or whatever you want to call it in the world right now.
That's
like I
know. There's more name drops, Oliver.
You're just trying to compete at this point.
Oh, I could smoke him. I could smoke him. You don't have all night.
I will make all night because I'm sure
roll his 5'7".
Because here's the funny thing about it is that not only are there going to be name drops, but there's going to probably be a batshit crazy story tied to them probably as well.
I hope so.
That's what makes it entertaining. I was going to make a point here. I mentioned you were talking about chopsticks. Sabu used the chopsticks, and then I mentioned that people are doing skewers, and you said, please don't do that. And then, you're talking about like the art, the art form of wrestling. Do you think that as time is going on, this idea that wrestling is an art form, do you feel that that's kind of going away, like with some of this more blood and guts stuff?
It's funny that they say I'm doing my art and I'm performing my art. Like they say that more than ever, but I'm not seeing any artistry to it. They're hitting each other for real. There's no part of wrestling used to be magic. You don't know if I'm really hitting you or not. And
yeah.
Part of the fun the fans used to have was to guess. Oh, that was real. That wasn't real. I've heard fans at ringside saying that during matches. Oh, that was real. And I'm like, nope, I'm just good. Whoever I might be. I'm not bragging on myself again. Whoever was in the ring at the time, but there's no artistry to that. It's the same way now. The guys, instead of learning how to work and to be light, there's an artistry to being light and how to. But it doesn't just happen that I'm light. You have to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
My light punch looks like crap if you sit there and just wince.
Yeah.
I remember working with the Honky Tonk Man, who's been my tag team partner on 4 occasions.
Pick that name up.
And we had a little bit of rough time with one of the opponents. It was a tag team match. One of the opponents was a little rough around the edges, and he comes back and he goes, "Man, whatever happened to I make a face, you make a face? I grab you by the arm and I go, arr, and you look out and you go, whoa, and we're both making faces, and we don't have to kill each other, and the fans are responding to it. Whatever happened to I make a face, you make a face? I do something, you respond.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to bop you in the forehead with my fist to make you sell it."
Do you think a lot of that is because of, to go back a little bit, because of what they're being taught? They're not being taught to do that, so now they have to make it real?
They learn to do their thing. Your move is no good if I don't sell it right.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of a time I was wrestling in Georgetown, UWC, on Friday nights, and Some of the guys were giving Cecil Cerveza a hard time because his buzzsaw kick didn't look good.
Oh, giving Cecil Cerveza a hard time, surely not.
There wasn't anything wrong with his buzzsaw kick. I took the guys that were saying that and I said, it's because you guys aren't selling it. And I said, Cecil, I got down on my knees. Cecil, give me the buzzsaw kick. And I sold it and grabbed my head, jumped forward, boom. It was the same kick. I said, how'd that one look? They said, that one was better. I said, because I sold it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, then they got on him again. He wrestled other people, and they weren't selling it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And doing the same thing and just barely taking it, wincing, making his kick look bad again until 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however long it was up the road. I'm in the ring with him again. I'm down on my knees. And they're telling him, your kick doesn't look good. You've got to stiff people with it. You've got to stiff people with it. And I get down, and he's getting ready for a buzzsaw kick. He hauls off and stiffs me with it.
Oof.
And I'm thinking, I'm not going to kick his butt. I'm going to get back there and grab them who've been telling me to stiff it.
Because let's see how you like it when you get stiff. You know what I mean?
I've got a bad neck anyway.
Yeah. That's a good little segue.
It's not hurt people. It's the other guy has to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, how I've got 1 foot in old school and 1 foot in whatever it is today. I know, like I had a guy slam me on the ground and he runs off the ropes. He's going to do the running senton.
Mm-hmm.
And before I was like, that moves just fine. And you know how to take it and everything. He jumps on me with his full body weight. I thought I was going to have a prolapse.
That wouldn't have been good.
It wouldn't have been good.
That would have been terrible.
I almost did have that one time. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But he jumped on me with his full body weight. And I thought, I remember when guys used to work. And then I've heard people since then say that. What about with Jerry Lawler when he had the heart attack? Again, that was the Dolph Ziggler, wasn't it? And he's dropping elbows on Lawler. And I remember Lawler said in an interview, he goes, I'm down there thinking, I remember when guys used to work. And sure enough, he skipped Lawler's heart, gave him a heart attack. And the same thing with a few years ago with a Royal Rumble or something when Lita was in it. And it was the girl that does the elbow, Kari Sane does an elbow drop from the top. And she jammed Lita with that. And Lita thought the same thing. We used to protect each other. Well, now they say, well, I'm doing my art, I'm performing my art, but there's no artistry whatsoever to hitting somebody. They're sitting there giving you their body and you hitting them.
Yeah.
Something wrong with that.
And I think that's, I know there was this unwritten law, I think that one thing that people love to brag about is their chops. And I know there was an unwritten law that when you work Harker Dirge, he ain't a chop guy. You do not chop him. And like, I remember one time you were working with someone and he had a manager ringside and she chopped you and you just immediately started pursuing her.
I told her, see you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Because what did you just prove right there by chopping you? And like, I remember asking you one day, I was like, why do you, and you flat out told me, you said, well, first of all, one of the big reasons I am pretty fair skinned and I don't want to be walking around with a big chop mark on my chest.
It looks stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, there's just certain things that now people beat their chest about that. Like, we'll get into a chop off, you know what I mean?
They do it in their so-called wrestling schools. They have a chop line and they chop each other up like it's a toughness skill.
Mm-hmm. What, like
it's
it's
a skill to sit there and get smacked and slapped. It's kind of girls slap.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, that's the thing too, is
we used to do them a lot. It was in around 98, 99. It was popular. It was popular to do chops. And here we're going to do another. I mean, this might be another segue. I don't know. So I got used to doing chops myself. I would chop guys and I would take them just fine. 1998, 1999 up until 2000. Year 2000, March and April of 2000, I went over to the UK and wrestled for the British Wrestling Federation. These were guys that were on a full-time wrestling schedule. They were making their living wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing the chop on their shows, and they didn't like that one bit. And it's one of the things that smartened me up to stop that, because they said, look, we got to go on the road. We're all going to be on the show tomorrow. We don't want to be marked up and bruised up. We've got to travel. We want to be comfortable. We want to look good for the next crowd. Why are you going to mark each other up?
Yeah, there was someone recently. There was a music video shoot for at a wrestling company that we were booked on, and one of the guys was in there, and one guy chopped him. This is a music video shoot. Like we're not, trying to go out here and, make each other's chest bleed. So then he threw him in the corner and he said, lighten up. And then he's like, don't do that. And then like there was a break between the shoots and he's like, yeah, like, what are you doing? Like, this is a music video shoot. Like that's the natural thing that I feel like, it's almost as if like you go from, tackle, drop down, leapfrog, and then it's like, okay, let's get you in the corner, couple chops, shoot you off. And then, it seems like it's become commonplace. I can't tell you doing commentary, how many times I've been on a show and it's multiple matches. It's the around the world chop spot. Like say it's a 7-match card, 3 or 4 of them have that same spot. So like, I don't know what you're trying to prove
Nobody
with
sells them. No, and you can't win a match that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to look at wrestling as a reality, you can't win a match by slapping somebody in the chest. You got to get them on the ground.
Yeah.
It's really funny to the guys that like to chop and be tough with it, though, when you get them on the ground and put them in a hold to listen to them squeal.
Yeah. Do you think
now we're doing wrestling? What were you doing?
Yeah. Do you think it's almost a way of peacocking in a way, like to try to, show that you're more than what you actually are?
No. I think it's because they don't know what the heck else to do.
Okay. I mean, that's just as good. Yeah. That's a pretty good way of looking at it too.
It's cheap heat.
Yeah.
The fans hear smack and they go, ooh.
Yeah.
Well, they got a response by something, didn't they? They didn't get a response walking through the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get a response tying up. They couldn't do that right. They got somebody in the corner and slapped them really hard. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
I used to kick them in the balls. I'd give them 2 chops and I'd kick them in the balls. They wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to get someone to stop doing it. But I mean, that goes back to that then versus now that we had talked about earlier. It's like, were you seeing a lot of that back when you were first starting out, or like was it another one of those you blink and all of a sudden now everyone's chopping each other's?
It went away and then it came back. I mean, it was there because, like I said, I was even doing it at one point.
Yeah,
it just seemed natural. And then I'm young. I mean, I'm a 23-year-old kid. But then it went away, but then it just came back. And I don't know why that did. I mean, of course, everybody originally was just imitating Ric Flair. People used to woo, said, you're not getting anybody over but Ric Flair with those chops.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing as like, it's the definition of you're just doing something that you're seeing on TV. It's like, are you really getting yourself over because of that? Or are they just reacting because, hey, I've seen Ric Flair do that, so I've been taught that.
I guess so, they're wooing.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially the same as a Watt chant almost. Yeah, I know you hate the Watt chant. I know you and I both hate the Watt chant. There was a few times in Georgetown.
Complicated matters for a while.
Yeah. So we were to go back just a little bit. You were talking about this guy. What happened to working? What happened to protecting each other? I'm sure from that. Because like you said, you're transitioning, you're saying the then versus now, you blink, boom, it's here. I'm sure that there are plenty of injuries that have racked up to you specifically of what are we doing here?
I've had random ones that were innocent, but also ones from guys that didn't know how to work.
Yeah.
We'll just start listing injuries, right?
If you got a list, let's list it.
I got one that hurts right now, and I'm poking my finger in my rib, and there's a hole in my rib. And that's from 1998.
Ooh.
When I got my ribs crushed. I wanted to try new moves. I'm going to do moves. You ever seen the reverse suplex where you get them like the Sting's DDT?
Yep.
But you take them backward?
Yeah.
I did that to a guy, except he didn't know how to set for it. And he pushed himself off using my ribs.
Oh, naturally.
And in the midair, when I've got him up backward, I just feel crunch. And then the taste of blood goes through my mouth because that was it. That was the injury. Oof. That was the first time I was ever injured in a ring. And of course, I didn't sell it. I was giving him the move. He's supposed to sell it. I just grin and bear it. Then had to drive home 6 hours.
Oh. And naturally, probably no health insurance at the time.
There's nothing you can do with ribs.
Yeah.
Broken ribs, you can just tape them. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So that hurts to this day. And my grandfather, he died in his 90s. He had broken ribs from a teenager. He said it never gets better. So I got that to look. That's why you need to take care of each other, because things are going to happen innocently enough. If you're not taking care of each other, they're really going to happen, and you're going to hurt for life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had my shoulder dislocated and separated. The separation was a neat trick. I was wrestling on a small show on an old converted church where they had a stage, and they for some reason put the ring up next to the stage. And at one point I called for the guy. I said, throw me out of the ring. And I said, grab me by the tights. He was on his knees. I said, grab me by the tights and pull me from the ring. And I set him where there was plenty of room for me to bump on the side with fans and chairs. He spun and pulled me to the side of the stage.
Where there's nowhere to protect yourself.
Nowhere to even bump.
Yeah.
And I went between the ring and the stage and totally separated my shoulder. Wow. That I went to the doctor for, because it hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And I made it home. We finished the match. And there was a local wrestler he was there sitting in the crowd as a fan. I don't think he was booked on the show. I don't know why he was there. And he was so dumb. I finished the match. I've got a separated shoulder. I finished the match with only my left hand to use.
He comes up and pats you on the back.
After the match, he doesn't even do that. He comes up and he goes, oh, man, that wasn't a very good match.
Oh, yeah.
I said, you asshole. You couldn't tell I was injured and only able to use one arm?
You asshole. Like, I love that.
I apologize.
It's just like, he was very dumb. just calling someone dumb.
But it still hurts to this day.
Your shoulder still hurts to this day?
Oh, yeah. I can't sleep on my right side anymore.
Ooh.
That's also the side the ribs were broken on.
So your just right side is just completely obliterated. Yeah. Now, I noticed, like, as you're sitting here, obviously this is just an audio, meaning, like, you're moving the legs and stuff. I'm sure you got some
stretch it all the time. Yeah. I can't stay in one position.
I'm sure you got some leg issues that you faced from
A to Z.
Yeah.
The worst thing is my neck still.
Yeah. Well, so in 2016, I want to say, I was on a show with you. I had left the business at this time, but I was at the show. And I remember, I'm not going to name who you were in the ring with, obviously. It was an accident. It wasn't meant to happen. But you did the whole, you're seated in the corner. You got your hands on the top rope. He pulls you out by your legs, and you spike right on your neck. And that's supposed to be just a straight.
No, that's later. When I hurt my neck, this was after something else had happened.
Oh, so that wasn't your first.
I've always had a bad neck. Years before that, I had gone to give a small guy a press slam.
Oh, how could I forget about
this?
this?
I told him to go up, and I told him how to go up for it, but instead of going up for it, he just jumped on the top of my head.
And that just compressed it.
And my right arm, again, my right side, my right arm gave way immediately, and I couldn't lift it. And, well, we finished the match, and that night I'm like, I can't lift my arm. And I went to bed. I said, I'm going to try to sleep on it. I didn't sleep all night. I got up at 6 in the morning. I said, we're going to go into the emergency room, see what's up. They gave me the scan, and the doctor came in pale in the face. He said, what do you do? I said, I wrestle. He goes, you can't do that anymore. He goes, I don't want to freak you out. You have no space you have no disc space in your neck. You've sprained your neck now. He says, but you're lucky. You have no disc space. And I can see that one of your vertebrae has been broken at some point and healed itself. It's got a crack in the heel.
Then you don't even know when.
No, I don't know. I knew my neck always hurt. And I said, you got to stop. To say, okay. I just said, I'll be more careful.
And then you did like another year and a half.
I wrestled another couple of years after that.
Yeah.
But then that part of what you're talking about, 6 months after that, the guy, I'm holding the ropes and I tell him, grab my legs and give me the bump. He over-rotated me right on the back of my neck.
Yeah. I remember I was on commentary for that match, and I knew right away. I was like, oh, Harker hurt.
It hurt.
I was like, Harker is hurt.
But I went on. He's a nice guy. He's a nice kid.
It was just a freak accident,
But people don't learn how to protect.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to know to pull me out from the ropes and lay me down flat.
Not pull up.
But he pulled me all the way up to where there was no place I could land other than my neck.
Yeah.
It's just physics. You have to be thinking in there. How's this guy going to land when I pull him?
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of thought really goes into it. I mean,
you pull me out and you pull me straight and let me take my own bump.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault. It's just nobody's taught right.
Well, that's like we were talking when the mics were off. It's like a lot of it is just taking your own bump. Like, you can guide a little bit, but it's really on them to do what they got to do. And, and that's where it can really mess up, because it's like, say you're giving someone a move and they don't really fully understand that they got to take the bump.
I'm not giving them a move. They're taking a move.
Or taking it, rather.
See,
sorry.
that's the whole mentality of it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be the one in charge now.
But yeah, so say they're taking a move from Harker Dirge, they take it wrong. With this mentality, well, you gave it wrong. You hurt him. And that could really come back and bite you in the ass.
It'd give you a bad reputation.
And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. So obviously, this is paralysis implications. So I'm sure the neck is probably the worst one that you've had. Or would you say that
the
there's...
neck always is. I could have been... Turns out I could have been paralyzed at any moment if somebody hit me on the top of the head just right.
Yeah, and that's why Sting had to retire for those years that he retired, because he took that buckle bomb from Seth Rollins, and they said that it was a genetics thing. Like, he just didn't really have the protection of his neck. And then he goes to AEW and he's jumping off balconies. But
boy, those midlife crises.
Yeah.
But that's another thing, buckle bomb. I never even knew about a buckle bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrestling Shank Barzini, and I told him, I'm going to do a spot where I'll lift you up over my head by the neck, and I'm going to throw you into the corner for the next spot, And I'm thinking, throw him in. I'm old school, so I'm thinking, I don't know about a buckle bomb. He must be thinking buckle bomb now that I see what happened. I'm thinking, I'm going to throw you into the corner. Well, that means you land on your feet in the corner.
But he sold it.
But he goes all the way back like I'm going to throw him into the buckle. And boom, hits the back of his head on the bottom turnbuckle.
Ugh.
It's like, oh, you were supposed to land on your feet.
Yeah.
But he's tough, so I go down there, you okay?
Oh,
yeah, I'm fine. And we go to the next spot. And then afterwards I say, man, we had a miscommunication. But then that makes me look bad. It makes me look like Nia Jax or something.
Yeah, that's literally how she hurt someone, was throwing them into a buckle like that.
But I'm like, land on your feet. I didn't have it. It never dawned on me that guys would go with their full body weight without their feet touching first.
Yeah.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
Turnbuckles hurt, especially when these guys tighten the ropes up so much.
Mm-hmm. Have you, or no, not have you, but did you start to notice that things were going differently on how to work a match and like how to take these bumps, like as you're over the years calling these matches with these guys? Because I'm sure
the things that they're saying in the locker room.
Yeah.
Like I had a guy, small dude, maybe 165 pounds tops. And he wants to give me some kind of Samoan drop type move. And he says, well, how much do you weigh? I'm like, what do you mean, how much do I weigh? Well, I want to lift you up and do this and that. How much do I weigh is not the proper question. It's, can you go up for this?
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is post. I'll go up.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him I'm going to take the move. If he doesn't know how to ask me right, I'm not going to take it, because I don't know where he's going to put me.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it, too. I mean, it's like, if you don't even know how to call the move, I can only imagine that you don't know how to give it. Have you ever had an injury where you had to stop the match, or have you always just toughed it out?
I've always gone through the match.
Yeah.
To my detriment. I mean, it's not worth it. If anybody's listening that's in the independent wrestling, if you get hurt, stop it. It's not worth it. There's only a few people there. You're not getting paid hardly anything. But I always went through anyway, just because that's the way I was.
Yeah.
I always wanted I like closure. I need the closure.
Well, it's almost like an old school mentality.
It was probably stupid. Like when I separated my shoulder, I was wrestling the next week. And what I should have done is rehab. And if I would have rehabbed that shoulder, it probably wouldn't hurt today.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to hit the next match and the next match, because it's what you do,
So then with that being said, because, you're talking about and you're doing it.
I have been in matches that had to be stopped. Powerhouse Wrestling was out of Streeter, Illinois. My friend Tim Lyle was the promoter. But we used to run at Wizard World in Chicago. It was in Rosemont, Illinois.
Uh-huh.
It's a big multimedia convention. And we did that 4 years running. One year we were at the Rosemont. My brother, again, my dear brother, was wrestling, and he had been out partying the night before and had no sleep, and was probably his blood was probably 90 proof at the time.
Yeah.
And he did a dive off the top rope and had the opponent move, and he did the headbutt onto the mat. Well, the mat was pretty hard, and he knocked himself out, and he couldn't get up. And since this is Wizard World Chicago Comic Con and all these people and everything's official, they made the match stop. And they made him get on the stretcher and go in the ambulance. And this is my brother. We're in a strange town, and I don't know what's going to happen. I've got to get on the ambulance with him, right? Take care of my money. Here, you take care of my money, my merchandise, and all this. I've got to go. I've got nothing. We've got no cell phones. I've got no wallet. I got nothing. And I'm in my wrestling gear. He's in his wrestling gear. I throw on a T-shirt. My wrestling gear was high patent leather black and silver boots with multicolor rainbow leopard print tights.
So that really painted a great picture.
So I'm in the waiting room at the hospital while he's in the... Well, I go in with him to the observation room, right, where they're checking him out and whatnot, and then he's coherent and he's going to be okay. It was just he got knocked out.
Yeah.
And people who work with the hospital are starting to come by, and one of the nurses comes by. See her come by once. She comes by twice, puts her head in. Are you guys wrestlers? I said, yeah, we're wrestling over at the Rosemont here. Oh, nothing weird ever happens on my shift. And it's my birthday today.
There you go.
I said,
perfect
well,
timing.
happy birthday, ma'am. I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm glad my brother knocking himself out could be considered.
He was in baggy red wrestling pants and
he had the
black
slappy
boots.
pants.
He had the Sabu style.
Yeah.
And so he gets it. Well, you rung your bell, and we're going to discharge you guys. You can go home. We get out into the lobby and the waiting room. We're like, what do we do now? Don't have a cell phone. Nobody knows where we are. Nobody knows where they took us. And we're staying at the Hyatt. Hey, I haven't stayed at the Hyatt. How about that? Wizard is putting us up at the Hyatt.
Ooh, that's big money right there, too.
I'm talking to him. I said, well, what are you supposed to do now? And there's a guy that was there. He goes, well, my wife's going to be in here for a while. I can take you guys back to the hotel.
So it's just you and your brother, who, as you mentioned, is your twin brother.
And he had twin brother, but he has really long hair and a beard. So we don't just look alike.
Yeah, but just imagine that guy, the story, like the nurse saying nothing exciting ever happens on my shift.
We gave her a story to tell.
But you gave this guy a story to tell.
And now this guy, and he had 2 kids. I don't know what his wife was in there for. It's awkward to ask, but she was going to be there a while. And he lets us in his van, and he's got the Christian music playing. I mean, God was looking out for us that day. If you don't believe, you'll believe when things like that happen, because there was no other way I could have got back.
What would
he had this tragic injury, but now I'm seeing the kindness of strangers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's just so serendipitous.
That was not only a moment for her to tell, that's a story for me to remember too.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
That's the opportunities and bringing people together and stories to tell that wrestling can give you.
Yeah, really can.
And that's why things like that, I always respected it in return.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think people don't respect it in return.
It's
that's why I would finish the match, or that's why I would make it to the next booking.
It's literally paying it forward.
Yeah,
like it's what you don't really see a lot of it.
It's like I said, it's easy come, easy go. Well, I've got a party tonight. I'm going to do that instead of wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, you've never had these types of experiences, or known what it's like, or maybe there's a kid that's looking forward to seeing you, no matter who you are.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it.
I'm just waxing poetic. Listen to me.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's wax poetic. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying here. Is that it's basically a roundabout way of saying, like, really live in the moment and like know what you're experiencing, because it's like,
be thankful for it too.
Yes, exactly.
How many people dream about even just stepping in the ring in any way whatsoever? Even if you're in front of 25 people, you're getting something that a lot of people can't have. There might be a guy in a wheelchair that can't physically step through those ropes, and you're taking it for granted.
But he's living vicariously through you. Yeah.
Make it worth his effort.
Yes. Yes. And it even goes back to, it's just like, when I don't remember when you said it, but you've said it at some point while we've been talking. It's like, oh, there may be a kid there that's expecting you, but you canceled the show. It could be that kid's whole day. He's been at school all day Friday, knowing that he's going to wake up tomorrow morning and he's going to get to go to this show on Saturday, and he's going to see this person. Oh, this person canceled. Like, come on. Like, you got to remember the people that got you.
Yeah, we're not just doing this for us. We're doing it for other people too. Because I remember the excitement of being a fan and going to the shows and going to the Decatur Civic Center in Decatur, Illinois, and seeing Randy Savage against Ricky Steamboat, things like that. And man, that made your day, that made your month.
Yeah.
Your year sometimes.
Yeah.
If it was Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying is that, like, could you imagine how heartbroken a little Harker Dirge would have been if it's like, oh, Warrior can't make it? I mean, like, well, if it was around 96, I mean, you know, he had that notorious thing where he canceled all those house shows. But like, that's what you got to look at. It's like, put yourself in the position of the fan, like how bummed out you would be if, you know, Warrior or Savage or Steamboat canceled, you know?
Really, didn't used to be no shows.
Yeah. And that, you know,
one time Hacksaw Jim Duggan didn't show up. I was bummed.
There's another no show.
They tried to. It was here in town, just two miles up the road.
Now, is this you going to the show as a fan or
this
working
is me
with
as a
him?
fan
Okay,
at WWF?
Yeah.
The advertised main event was Hacksaw against the Undertaker.
Oh, that's a big money match right there, brother.
It was in this town because you gotta know this is Hacksaw territory now. So they gave us They ended with Shawn Michaels against Marty Jannetty and never then turned up the house lights. We're waiting on Hacksaw.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, this is wrong. And I started, oh.
Did the Undertaker ever come out?
Took off through the whole arena with everybody doing it then. And we're waiting. Nobody's leaving. We hadn't done a main event yet. They turn the lights back up, come up, get in the ring. Hacksaw Jim Duggan had travel issues. Good night. Drive safe. Have fun.
I mean this with no disrespect towards Hacksaw Jim Duggan, but that is the weirdest name that's what people were upset about, that Hacksaw's not here. I didn't realize that.
Every territory is different. This central Illinois, even though this is a college town, this is the outskirts and around here is farm community, and it's blue collar, and Hacksaw's a blue collar hero.
That makes sense.
So he was super over in this area. And he works light because I got to work against Hacksaw Jim Duggan years later.
I'm going to pick that up off the ground, that name that you just dropped.
And
did you tell him, like,
got great big fists on him? And I mean, the first time he went to punch me, I'm like, here it comes, and ting, didn't feel a thing.
Did you tell him, like, this is for when you no-showed?
No, you don't tell him things like that.
Yeah.
Hacksaw's cool though. Back then, he used to carry little bottles of airplane vodka in his bag.
I think a lot of them probably did back in those days.
A few of them might have, but that's what he got.
Had a few road sodas.
I was on a few shows with him. I'd watch the more bottles he got, the more amped up he got, the better the match was going to be.
Yeah. Well, there's that footage that was on Dark Side of the Ring where it was him and Matt Bourne in there, and he's like, "Are you going to work? Are you going to work?" And like Matt Bourne,
"You're going to shoot."
Yeah. Are you going to work or are you going to shoot? Have you ever been in a situation like that where you've had to like be like, "Listen, are you going to work with me?"
Probably,
but you just don't remember it. Just one that
There's
you can't
a lot
really.
I don't remember. I was going through photographs earlier today and seeing pictures of me in the ring. I had no idea what the building was, who the opponent was, or nothing.
Yeah,
you forget. I've had. I mean, when you've had over 1,000 matches, and I have, you forget things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I have. I have it in my mind, like I feel like I've been in sticky situations where I just got people on the mat and we held it. Because what you'd be taught is just hold them down until they settle down, and then they'll usually work. But you don't give them your body the rest of the match.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what stupid thing they're going to do.
Which, you know, by the way, guys, we are going to put pictures from all of these that we are alluding to. We're going to put this on the Patreon account. So, you know, with that being said, you know, we talk about the injuries and, you know, how to this day you still got to constantly stretch. And forgive me for assuming here, but you had mentioned earlier that you can't travel because of injuries. I'm assuming it's because of your leg issues. You can't stay in a car for that long or whatever.
My hip.
Your hip. This is the age-old question. This is the proverbial question that anyone in a situation like that.
Pervy old question.
Yeah, the pervy old question here. I'm sure that, like, do you regret it? Like, do you regret, like, looking back on it now? Like, knowing where you are now, like, would you have done anything different? Would you have maybe you separated your shoulder?
I met my wife through wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, right there.
Yeah.
I could not live without life.
Yeah.
What's the one thing I could not live without?
Life.
Life.
Yeah.
That's another. For those who haven't watched The Legends House, Dickie and I used to enjoy talking about that. When it first came out, it was called WWE Network originally.
Yes. I missed
And
Network.
that was one of the first shows on there. And
it was
we
so
watched
good.
it routinely and would discuss it.
I would come into the locker room on a Friday and be like, did you watch it yet? And I would be either disappointed or excited when you would go, yeah, I did watch it.
So I Cannot Live Without Life and was a callback to that.
Yes, I Cannot Live Without Life. The one that, like, Piper was the
Piper
best.
and Duggan.
Piper and Duggan.
The guy that I wrestled with, Duggan.
Yeah. Speaking of feet, Tony Atlas is an asshole. Like, that's one of my...
That's the word on the street.
Yeah. The first episode where Roddy Piper's just howling at the moon and, like, following it. And it's like, what are you doing, Hot Rod?
Piper's the one guy I wish I could have met.
I was going to ask if you
him.
had met Piper.
Really admire Roddy Piper.
Yeah, he's one of the good ones.
Boy, that last message he left on Hulk Hogan's answering machine was chilling.
I don't know about this.
It's in the A&E documentary. Hulk got a message that he couldn't check. I guess Florida was having hurricanes or something, and Hulk couldn't check the message.
Mm-hmm.
And afterward, he checks the message. He's already found out Roddy died. He checks the message. Roddy says, Hulk, I just want to check on you. I'm walking with Jesus. I'm walking with Jesus. It almost sounds like he's a ghost from the grave. It was chilling.
Stuff like that, like it's like
you can hear that on the special too.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's not another Hulk story.
I've not watched it. Now hold on, dude. That's one of those that, like,
I love Hulk Hogan.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? That's another one that's like this weird hindsight stuff. Like, you look back, you mentioned Warrior a minute ago, like you would go to the shows, like he essentially gave his own eulogy on Raw the night before he passed away.
Yeah.
And it's just chilling stuff like that with how stuff just...
But wrestling affords us these moments.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So looking back on it, it's like, yeah, it is worth it.
That's why I respect it. If you get in the ring and you're allowed to get in the ring, you're blessed. Respect it. Don't take advantage of it.
Or don't take it for granted, I think, is another thing too. Because like you said, there could be someone in a wheelchair ringside who will never get the opportunity to get in there. And that bump that you're complaining about taking, that person would pay $1 million to be able to take that bump. So it's like they live vicariously through you. It's that's just the little things that I really don't think people take into consideration. And I think it's a shame.
It's a throwaway society now. Let's talk politics next.
Oh, boy.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that to you because you enjoy you work hard every day. You want to enjoy your entertainment without thinking about the stressful things.
Yeah, we're trying to
be. We're talking about wrestling.
Trying to be an escape. You know what I mean?
It's a throwaway society, and I think people don't appreciate the blessings that they have. I mean, you've first world problems, right? People complain about stupid things.
Yeah, I've been guilty of it.
And I think that at some point, professional wrestling on the independents became that, just a throwaway thing. Like, I'm entitled to this. It's going to be mine. Blah, 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 blah. Easy come, easy go.
Yes. Yeah. And that goes back to the then versus now, because like you said, you blinked one day and then.
And it's different. It's just different. It's just a different thing now. I'm not saying what's happening now is bad. It's just not for me.
Yeah. Is that part of the reason that you decided to back away?
Yeah. I've heard legends. I mean, I've used to wrestle with guys that were 60 years old, and I'd say I could do this forever if everybody knew how to work this way. Mm-hmm. But it's dangerous now. You'll get hurt. Whatever happened to I make a face, you make a face.
Yeah. It goes back to your gimmick in the corner where he pulled you up. Like that could have been it.
Yeah. And a nice kid, a really nice kid.
Great guy, incredible guy. I remember. I just saw him not too long ago, actually.
He's probably not a kid now. He's probably middle-aged.
yeah, probably. But yeah. So that was. I'm sure that you probably just looked at it, and I'm sure you. Do you feel that you had accomplished everything that you set out to, or was there like there's like that one thing that you're like, man, if only.
What do they say? It's not the destination, it's the journey.
That's a very good way to put it.
So, I mean, yeah, when I started, I thought I'd be in Madison Square Garden or something like that.
Madison Square Garden.
When I worked with Sheikah, he'd cut a Madison Square Garden promo. I'm standing right next to him.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But you think you're going to work at Madison Square Garden or the big arenas and be on TV and have action figures and that sort of thing. But along the way, you just keep plugging along. Don't look for the end goal. Just enjoy what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. I did so many things I never would have imagined, and I probably enjoyed it more. I'm not the type of person that needs fame or recognition. It's hard to believe if you look at me, but I probably enjoyed wrestling on a small time a little bit more than I would have with the high pressure.
Yeah.
High pressure sales of the big corporations, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm a homebody. Like I said, I met my wife in late 1998. So we've officially been together 26 years now.
Wow.
And I'd rather stay home with her than go out traveling and hanging out with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And we would travel together. I don't get in a car with other wrestlers very often, but she and I would travel.
It was always
she was the only
yeah.
person I ever trusted to run my merchandise table too.
Yeah.
She always managed my money.
Many a Georgetown Friday night, she would be back there behind, and she would be kind enough. I would say, "Do you mind just watching my stuff?" And she would do it. You know, incredible woman.
I knew to stay away from the locker room. Anybody brings their wife and a girlfriend, keep them out of the locker room. It's not for them; it's for us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was one thing that I would notice about, she would kind of mother hen some of the other workers' girlfriends and stuff. That was kind of like an added, I want to say bonus, because I'm sure, maybe she enjoyed it. I don't know. No. But no, she did not. It can speak for her. In fact, it did not enjoy it. But yeah, that's the thing. But
I probably enjoyed doing the independence in small time more than if I would have lived my dream and my goal. Who knows? I might have hated it by now.
Yeah. So your goal was WWE.
My goal was just to my dream.
Yeah.
But my goal, I don't even know if I had a goal. My goal was to wrestle.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was too when I first got into the business. I didn't really have a goal. I just
you should, no matter what you're doing, you should always strive for excellence.
Oh, always.
Even if you know from day one, I'm never gonna go further than we'll use the common one, Georgetown. I'm never gonna go further than Georgetown. This is all I want to do. It's just for lark. Just for fun. I'm just LARPing. Well,
good way to put it.
Do it as excellent as you can.
Yes. Don't half-ass it.
You owe it to yourself. Even if not the fans, you owe it to yourself to do the best you can. Pretend that's Madison Square Garden,
and for some people it is.
Yeah.
That's my Madison Square Garden. That Georgetown Community Center is hallowed grounds to me. I would, if I were to walk into that building, I would probably cry because of just
up in the attic once.
You did. I remember when that happened. I remember you telling me.
I was absolutely bursting, and we had no open restrooms available.
Yeah. Good times in that building. Do you have any good Georgetown gyms?
Before they started letting us use the showers, and I could just pee in the drain.
Yeah.
We could do a whole other hour on places I've peed.
I am here for it, brother.
Here's one. I'll speak for him. Sabu once told me he was at an ECW show where it was some kind of show where they had horse stalls in the back. And Sabu needed to take a crap. And the so-called makeshift locker room was here right in front, and the horse stalls were in the back. And Sabu said, screw it. And he went back in the horse stalls and took a crap. And all night, everybody was blaming the horses for the smell, but it was him.
That is
when you gotta go, you gotta go.
That is my new favorite Sabu story. That is incredible. As a huge Sabu fan, the fact that Sabu is a very good way to put it. It was such a Sabu mark back in the day, man. Huge Sabu fan.
Cool dude.
That's why I wish let's go there. Let's some Sabu stuff, man. Because we
had good chemistry from the start. And he's real chill. He's real chill, mellow, relaxed dude.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the most nervous person ever.
Really?
Yeah. You'd think he's big league and all that, but he's nervous every time before he goes through the curtain. And he's nervous about meeting people and talking. Sometimes people think he's a jerk, but it's not. It's because he's kind of socially awkward, a little bit shy.
You can tell in interviews because there's that Forever Hardcore documentary that came out in 2005 or whatever it is. And you can tell he feels very uncomfortable being on camera. Now, do you believe it? Because it's his story and he is sticking to it, that all of the botches that he would do was planned? Or do you think that he was legitimately just slipping off the top rope?
I've never heard the guy lie that I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
So if he said it, I believe it. I don't have any reason not to.
Yeah, because that was the big thing is that they were talking about, so you would go for that triple jump moonsault and you'd eat shit all the time. And he was like, brother, I did that on purpose. Because and I don't remember his reasoning, so I'm not even going to try to pretend I remember it.
If you do that all the time, it looks pre-planned. In
That's
reality,
essentially,
you're
I think,
going
what
to
he
fall
was,
half the time.
I think that's what he was trying to go for with that one.
And you look at the way he lands. He never lands on the back of his head. He never lands dangerous. Go back and look at these so-called botches and see how he lands.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. Because a lot of people were just like, oh, bullshit. Like, you're just trying to cover your ass. But now that we've explained it this way, like, no, I could actually see that. Maybe he was working.
Because the guys who really bought, like, I mean, bless him, he's super talented. But when Jeff Hardy falls and hits the turnbuckle and falls, he falls on the back of his head.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a protected bump.
Mm-mm. That's because, like, if Sabu was really falling the way that he's claiming to be falling, then he'd be paralyzed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm sure you don't.
Oh, I'm sure there's a few.
The most times I know he's got an odd way of looking at things. So if he said that he did that on purpose, I don't see any reason not to believe him.
Yeah, and you're someone that knows him very well because you spend a lot of time with him.
We worked a lot. We worked for his cousin, Ed Farhat Jr. a lot.
Which is the son of the original Sheik.
Son of the original Sheik.
Yeah. He's the one that taught you how to fireball, right?
Eddie Jr. did.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sheik's son. The Sheik had passed away in 2003.
Okay.
Before I started working for Eddie. But yeah, he taught me how to throw the fire. So the first time I ever threw the fire, I would always have to have somebody hand me my lighter. I wasn't going to put a lighter in my tights and wrestle with it. I'd have somebody pass it off, whether it be somebody at ringside or a referee. First time I ever threw a fireball, I had Eddie hand me my lighter. So I've got the son of the Sheik, who was famous for throwing fire, pass the lighter off to me to throw the first fireball.
Oh my God. That's another one of those.
That was cool.
Pinch me. You know, I've been on the receiving end of a Harker Dirge fireball. I have taken one, and I remember it burned my upper lip because I was a little bit too quick and I was bent over you.
Oh yeah, you can't lean into it.
And you didn't smarten me up to that, because you told me, you didn't say don't lean into it.
That's the problem. I apologize for that, because sometimes you forget that people don't know.
Yeah, it was the first fireball I'd ever taken. And I remember I'm in the back and I'm like, oh man. And then I go, I'm going to go look in the mirror. Then you go, hey, cover your face. And I was like, oh, I'm going to. So I'm walking around like, oh, leave me alone, Marks. Leave me alone. Yo, I was selling it big time. And I remember.
But it doesn't hurt. It just burns.
No, it was just a burn.
The thing is, it takes more than 3 seconds of exposure to burn skin.
Yes.
And that paper that's used for that burns less than 3 seconds. But if I use a lot of papers, sometimes it takes a little longer.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the coolest experiences that I can say in a ring, is that I took a fireball from Harker Dirge, who learned from the guy that learned, the OG fireball, pretty much, That's one of those.
Sabu tried to throw one at me once in a cage match and burn himself.
Oh, really?
It stuck to him.
Oof.
Yeah.
You remember we were talking about Hogan and Warrior, the awful fireball that Hogan tried to throw on Warrior?
Well, I used to tape my hand. I would put tape around my right hand, around the fist. I would always do that just because when you throw fire, you have to make it, the paper, if you're wet, the paper will stick. So I would use the tape so my hand could never be wet. And if fire would just flow off that tape.
Did you ever burn yourself?
You have to wear the tape every time.
Oh, yeah, so that people don't know.
They don't know when you're going to do it when you're not.
Yeah.
If you only wear it when you throw fire, they're going to know you're going to do it.
You're kind of burying the lead.
The same thing as if you tape a blade somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to come in a ring with a piece of tape on your finger, every time you do that, you bleed, they're going to know.
Yeah. What was your technique with the blade? Where would you put it?
In my wrist, when I wore wrist tape.
Okay. Then
after that, it would be in the boot.
Oh, a boot's actually a pretty solid place.
Because I wore those Velcro boots.
Yeah. That's.
And I'm not telling you what I did with the blade for those of you at home. I just happened to have one in case something went down.
Yeah. Always got to have one with you just in case shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? But no, I wasn't mad or anything about that, but it was just like, it was on me. I didn't know that I shouldn't be leaning directly over you when you threw it, because
some things go without saying. Don't lean into the fire.
Well, I just,
Obviously, you're not a barbecue griller.
No, well, I am
Obviously,
now.
you do not use propane and propane accessories.
Hey, I do use propane all the time now on my Blackstone grill. Love it.
It's a cleaner burning fuel. Taste the meat, not the heat.
Oh my God, Harker, listen, if you want to get into King of the Hill right now, I will go King of the Hill because it is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I love King of the Hill. Yeah, so one thing that has always been kind of fascinating that I've noticed that you've done since the time that I've known you, and at first I didn't get it, and I viewed it a completely different way. But then once I get smarter to the business,
the sock and the tights, right?
The sock, yeah, absolutely. I tried it once. And then I was like, you know what? This guy's onto something. No, actually, it's taping my hand for a fireball. Okay, that joke fell flat. One thing that, like, again, when I was breaking in, like, I didn't quite get it and I viewed it a different way. But then I smartened up and then I'm like, you know what? No, that does make sense. You were always very smart about who you would and wouldn't put over. And if you did have to put someone over, it was most likely going to be dirty so that you could protect your character. At what point did you realize that, like, yeah, I should probably start doing that? Or is there even a specific launch point?
No, it's probably always psychology because, I mean, how good were some of the guys, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, look how often when I was in a match that was a little bit higher on the card, I didn't win clean all the time, even when I was a babyface, because you've got to keep everybody strong for next time.
Yeah.
People hear wrestlers talk on shooteries now. He wouldn't put guys over. This guy wouldn't put guys. And well, he's selfish. You don't understand that you're telling stories that have to go on and on and on. 50-50 booking doesn't work for anybody. You know what I mean?
It's that whole getting your win back mentality, like you said, of 50-50 booking. This babyface has been chasing the title. He just lost. Next show, he's going to be coming back and getting the title. And then what I meant by leading with that explanation is that it would be hard for me to explain totally the thought process. Yes.
Because if you haven't been there, you don't understand.
Yes.
And no matter how smart of a fan or how much you follow, you haven't been there, so it's hard to understand. So to say it in a way that people would all at least see what I was thinking at the time is difficult. But a lot of it also comes if you're talking about, like, again, we'll just use what's common Georgetown, but it's a weekly show.
Yes.
You have to know how much the fans believe in that character to know what should or shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
If I'm in a ring with Joe Schmo, who they don't know or who they don't really believe in, and I lay down 1, 2, 3 in the middle, everybody loses their credibility. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't automatically make him. It breaks me. They don't care about him still, and it breaks the promotion. Their enthusiasm to come back next week is low.
Yeah, because it's like we just saw that Harker is not infallible. Like, maybe he's not this Superman. Did I use that word right? I think I used that word right. My vocabulary is only good when I want it to be. It showed that, like, oh, you are human, but we're also trying to paint. We're trying to paint the human side of it too, but it's also like it's got to be a character that someone can believe in and, like, someone you can get behind.
It just kills their enthusiasm. If
Yeah.
there's somebody that's over. And the times you're talking about from when we knew, I think I was relatively over.
Relatively is a very good way to put it.
And I can't do that to the fans either, just to squander that.
Yeah.
Just because somebody comes in, wants to win. I mean, when Brian was booking it, he'd have guys, well, I think it's my turn to win.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Okay, 1 hour, 10 minutes. I'll cut that name out. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I mean, there's obviously got to be a give and take to it sometimes, but I also agree with the idea of, like, you can't look like a jabroni, like, constantly going under.
It's not personal though. It's not about
it's
me,
never
me.
personal.
It's about
Yes.
the business.
And that's what I'm getting at here.
I'll use a name everybody can understand. The common thing right now on the internet, I don't Sometimes I'm stupid enough to dive into the YouTube comments section on videos and interviews.
You're a brave soul.
I love Roddy Piper, but the common thing right now is, well, Roddy Piper was selfish. He wouldn't do jobs. He wouldn't let anybody pin him and whatnot. Well, it's not up to Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper had ideas about what his character should or shouldn't be, but in the end of the day, that was up to Vince McMahon, whoever else was in charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason Roddy Piper didn't want to lay down, say, for a Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania was because then what's next?
It's a continuing story.
Every finish you do in wrestling has to have one question after it. 1, 2, 3, what's next?
Yeah.
And if they can't answer, if they tell you, we want you to lose in the middle of this time, what's next? If they can't answer that, it's a dead end.
Mm-hmm. And you can't have a dead end.
Anybody. It's not good for the promotion, which in turn means the fans aren't going to like it, and they're not going to come back.
It's just like, movies are always a very good way of, Vince McMahon, we make movies and beyond the mat. But like movies are a good way to put it. It's like, you got Avengers Infinity War. Yeah, they just got their ass kicked by Thanos. They can't just end it there. Like you come back in Endgame and they beat him. So it's like, there's always going to be, there can't be a dead end because take wrestling out of it. Like I said, use a movie.
It's storytelling.
It's storytelling. Like people
don't even know what that means anymore.
No.
What's the story of the match? How do you tell a story in a match? They don't know.
Pick a limb and work it. Like that's like, it's just that simple. Or,
but the booking, it's got to be interwoven week in and week out, week in, week out. And sometimes it's time for the heel to win, but the heel might have to win crappy.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying is that like, and it's just a storytelling device. You can't have a dead end midway through, chapter 3. There's got to be a continuation. And I think that's a very good way of putting it. And what I'm saying is that like I said, is that at first I didn't really get it. And I was just like, why does Harker never put anyone over? Like this is green kid Dickie who doesn't understand the business yet. I can see how someone would view that as selfish, but then you start to realize, oh, okay, I see what he's doing here. And then it makes perfect sense.
And then when the time is right, I do it, and then more people become intrigued with what's happening.
Because it's like, oh my God, Harker just lost. How is he going to avenge this loss? But it's like if Harker loses and then comes back the next week and then loses and then comes back the next week and loses, so on and so forth, people are going to stop believing you because they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, why is this the person that I'm cheering because he's losing?
Which is fine if you're on a downward slope, as long as the promotion has somebody else moving up into that position.
Agreed.
But how often does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to cycle people up and down, but there was not a lot of depth at the top.
Yeah.
There's not a lot in independence, really. There's not a lot of top.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's pretty much interchangeable.
Do you think that obviously that's a huge detriment to what's going on? Like there's no one that feels like that top guy? Like, and what do you think could be done to rectify that?
Just people focusing more on character and the way they look. You got to look good too.
Yes.
You got to look the part.
Yeah.
Some guys get scandalized if you tell them they need to work out. It's like, well, you just need to look a little athletic. I'm not asking you to be a bodybuilder. Just if you look a little athletic and you've got nice gear, people are going to be attracted to that. They like shiny things.
Yeah, it's that larger than life personality. And that's one thing that like, and we didn't really spend as much time on the character of Harker Dirge as I would have liked. But, you made that transition around the time that I started knowing you of where not so dark and brooding and you're wearing more bright colors and your face paint is orange and blue as opposed to red and black and you're coming out
wearing pink.
Yeah, you started wearing pink and you started wearing like all these like purples and pinks and neon greens. And it's like that was naturally the next evolution of the character. And that's the other thing too, is that it's like, sure, you can have these characters, but you gotta evolve.
But you remember, if I could put that in perspective, we're talking about the change of the character was right around these times. And again, in the Georgetown that we all love so much. But I switched up to a more colorful gimmick after losing, so that brought me back fresh.
Yeah. You got to reinvent yourself because you can't get stale.
Yeah.
And like, that's the big thing about it. And like, I think that's what I applaud you for is that you could read the room and you could be like, hey, you know what? Maybe it's time to start doing a little bit of reinventing here. And you would come in one week and you would have your new spiked vest, which you should never step up to a man wearing spikes. And one day you would come in and you would have this and you would have that. And, it's just like, that's like always adapting to what the situation is.
That spiked vest cost $1,000.
I remember you telling me that.
The guy that made that made some of the first stuff for the Road Warriors.
And it was an incredible vest. Do you still have that by chance?
Yeah.
Is that one you kept?
It's been in a sealed case for 6 years without being touched, so I don't know what condition it's in now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't even looked at it. Could have mold on it by now.
And who knows? Does leather mold? Yeah, it molds.
Yeah, it does.
So very badly.
If it's in cold or hot temperatures, or hot then cold, hot then cold.
So 2016 comes around, and I am out of the business at this point. I'd been out of the business for probably a year and a half. With my significant other at the time, we go to you mentioned Wizard World. We go to a Comic-Con type event. I get pulled to the side.
At the Hyatt?
I did not get to stay at the Hyatt that night.
Oliver Kane ever stay at the Hyatt?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, probably. I get pulled to the side by Jason V, and he tells me, he says, listen, what I'm about to tell you, this is pretty classified information, but Harker Dirge is retiring. He says he wants you involved in the match. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, yeah, let's make it make sense. One of the most surprising moments, I shouldn't say surprising, that's not the right word. One of the most incredible moments of my career at that time, Harker Dirge's retirement match. You were in there with what you labeled your guys. I still have that picture to this day of all of us, our curtain call photo. Was there something about that? Because you did end up coming back, and they always say that retirements are never real in wrestling. Was there something about that didn't quite hit it for you? So that's why you came back? Or was there other... or was there another motive that you were like, no, I'm going to need to do one more final little run?
Yeah, that. But first of all, I never said retirement. I said I was quitting. You can't retire from something you never made a living at.
You just unlocked a memory, because that was something that you had always told me. And I feel like a fool for saying retirement now, because I do remember you.
And not only that, but I didn't do a big announcement about it. I did a loser leaves town match and I lost.
Yeah. So you even
left
kind of
wiggle room.
You kind of left some wiggle room. I never really looked at it that way.
But I was done. Because I've just done anything. There was nowhere to go now. I was at a certain age where it's no real future. There's no money being made. And things are getting a little rugged as far as not knowing if people are going to hurt you or not.
Yeah.
But then about a year and a half later, the 01 promotion announced they were going to do a show at the Decatur, Illinois Civic Center. And that's where I used to go see WWF matches when I was a 10-year-old kid. And I thought, wow, man, I've never wrestled in a building where I went as a fan and watched the WWF. So I asked them if I could come back and do one last run to be part of that card. And they were good enough to let me do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they put me in a main event. A main event. It was a 2 main event.
Hey, there you go.
But in order to do that, I would have just done that one match. But in order to do it, I wanted to have a few matches leading up to that to get back in ring shape. Because you can't just go back in and have a top caliber match. So I wanted to do a couple matches to get back in ring shape, and then we were going to finish up. So I was going to do the match with Christian Rose, who's talented, and we were going to have a DQ finish, and then we were going to evolve our feud up into a finish in a cage match that October, and then I'd be done. So they knew that right away. Christian Rose had some health problems that he told me about that night. We were a little nervous getting in the ring because you never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, that was I remember hearing about him going through that. I don't know if
he's talked about that publicly.
Yeah, we won't go into details out of respect for him, but I do remember hearing it.
It wasn't anything.
No,
weird or nothing. Yeah. But it was just health problems. I had blown my knee out before that doing cardio too.
No, you
we
got
both
hurt
went in there injured.
Yeah.
And we still did a good basic old school match and had a nice time and a good finish. And I got my face busted open by a referee that didn't know how to work a spot. But hard way blood always looks good, so I was fine with that. And I got some good footage of it for my little mini movie.
Which we'll put a link to that on our Facebook page.
I was just going to finish. Yeah, I was done before with the match that you were part of.
Yes.
But then this came along and it was an enticing opportunity. They had Road Warrior Animal on the card too. And I thought, well, man, if you could get him in my corner for the match, that would be icing on a cake. And they told me that they could, but then Animal kind of vacillated up until the last moment and then decided he didn't want to. But that's okay. He's not with us anymore. And I suspect that maybe he was having some health problems then too, that he was afraid of getting a little amped up.
Yeah, it wasn't too long after that actually that he
within
he passed
a year
away. Yeah.
I just don't think he wanted to get physically, but he might have been having problems. He didn't.
Can't blame him. Can't blame him.
That's just me speculating, which isn't fair, but it's possible.
It's very possible.
So I don't blame Animal for not being part of that. But
yeah.
I thought up until that moment, then it turns out it was probably better without him there.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a nice match, and then I was going to finish up. Christian Rose couldn't finish the program. I finished it with two other guys. And, man, talk about things changing. The last two matches I ever had were tag team matches, and I was by far the biggest and tallest guy in the ring at 5'10".
Yeah, that's crazy.
I said, guys, I've never been a giant in the match before.
Yeah.
And I say, Adrian who trained me is 5'7", was 5'7".
Gift from heaven.
Yeah.
Oliver, why do we keep bringing up Oliver? Poor Oliver.
You killed the momentum.
I know.
Adrian was
I
5'7". So I'm not saying anything wrong with the guys being shorter than me. You can't help how you were born, but they were all in good shape. Everybody I wrestled with.
Yeah.
Except my partner, my last ever tag team partner, was the ring announcer.
Yeah.
5'2" or something.
Yeah, short guy. Very short guy.
Really enthusiastic.
Yeah, people had a lot of charisma. A lot of charisma. Did you ever think that though that would be the farewell of the?
No, you never think about that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that like training in '95, you fast forward, you are now tag team champions with a ring announcer, and this is your send off. Like this weird world of wrestling.
Technically, I'm still the tag team champions. I'm the longest reigning 0-1 tag team champions, me and Ralph.
Oh, did you just vacate them or not? You're still holding them apparently. So
I'm still holding as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you never put anyone over.
I probably
on your
got
way
about
out.
25 titles I'm still holding right now.
Yeah, you didn't do the honors, brother. You're supposed to do the honors on your way out. So obviously you got to work the Civic Center. So that was very cool.
Yeah, because I just took that moment to walk around the back area in the locker rooms and the hallways and everything and just understand. I'm a pacer. Before my match, I have to go by myself and concentrate and get in my zone. And I'm thinking, you know what? Ultimate Warrior wrestled in this same building. He probably paced the hallway like a maniac like I'm doing now, too.
Who knows?
Because he was another guy that had to get alone. Get in his zone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I always remember it was never talk to Harker like maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the match, because if you got any questions, be sure you get that in, because he's
invariably somebody would.
Oh, always. And it was usually Cecil. Cecil, we love you. Yeah, I mean, and that was the thing that shocked me is that, they always say that quitting, not to say retirement, that quitting in wrestling is never forever. And I ended up coming back a couple of times, and I'm back now. And that was always something that I kind of hang my cap on, is that I was involved in one of Harker Dirge's last matches, and
Dexter Schwartz put his tongue down your throat.
But again, that man's tongue has been down my throat more times than I really wish to remember. But I just remember the whole angle.
Might be a little fruity, son.
I don't know, dude. I remember the whole angle was that he just wanted me to love him. Like, that's all it was. He's like, I just wanted you to love me. And like, that's literally all it was.
That's why I wanted all that, just to tie all of that in together.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you love me, Dickie?
Closure.
Why don't you love me, Dickie? And that's really what was so crazy about it, is that it was you versus Jason V. Dexter Schwartz was involved, Dickie Wabash was involved, Frank Wyatt was involved, and the referee was Sean Rife. So it was like the Georgetown, I don't want to say clique, but it was like just the Georgetown guys, like that you labeled, these are my guys. So I want to go down the road with them one last time.
Yeah, you've always got people that you work well together because you know what they do and you know that they know your timing and stuff. So,
and I've said
it was a good story that we told.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I just remember that match, and like I just remember like
Tommy Dreamer watched it.
Tommy Dreamer was there.
He gave us a critique.
He did. He did. Wait a minute. What was his critique?
Good emotion.
Good
emotion. The emotion
yeah.
in the story.
Yeah, there was a good story there.
There was no bad critique. He probably figured it wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah, he probably didn't even watch the match. Like he's probably just like, good emotion out there, brother. But yeah, well, Harker, listen, we're gonna start to wrap this up here. I started the podcast of part 1 by talking about a legacy and like whether or not we like it or not, we all have a legacy in this business, and like the influence that you have had on me, like not even like just the way I handle myself in locker rooms or the way that in a matter of professionalism, like it's still there. And like the career of Dickie Wabash probably wouldn't be what it was had I not worked with you and learned from you. And so from that, I am eternally grateful for all the lessons, whether they be intentional or unintentional, that you have taught me. So sincerely, thank you very much.
Tremendous. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's the truth. Like you, I think and mention something that you have taught me or told me probably every show that I'm on. Like you somehow get brought up in some way.
Oh, those poor people.
Yeah, but Harker, this was incredible. This again, you were my white whale. Like I never thought that I would get this interview. From the bottom of my heart, sincerely, thank you. This was I could be done with this podcast tomorrow and be happy, because now I gotta chase that next dragon, I guess.
Now you gotta slap that nasty person.
I gotta slap that nasty person, but no, Hart, and like the fact that, like you said, you labeled me one of your guys, like that means so much to me. Like
you're
that,
my boy, Blue.
You're my boy, Blue. You are my boy. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. This has been incredible. This, to sit under the learning tree of Harker Dirge one more time, like, it's a pinch me moment. Like it's incredible.
I'm not gonna pinch you.
No, I would prefer that you
don't
not
ask twice.
You remember the time I botched that choke slam?
No.
You don't remember it?
No.
You were going to choke slam me off the apron onto Blake Reed was going to catch me, and we didn't communicate quite right. And I went before you were ready.
Okay.
And I just kind of fell off the apron. And I just remember like landing on the ground. I look up at you and I go, sorry. And then you go, "Hurr," and then you just went back to the match.
That's fine. You got to what happens. You got to ad-lib from there.
I was like, oh, Harker's going to kill me. I messed up the spot.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
I probably didn't think you could take the bump in the first place. But look, you're trying to sign off and then you keep talking. Let these people off the hook. Let them off the hook. They probably already cut out. Ain't nobody listening right now.
Oh, everyone's going to listen to this.
God bless you.
How could they not?
How could you not?
How could you not?
But they're all in jail.
They don't really have much Wi-Fi time, so they use the little bit of limited time they have to download the Podski. So
right.
We really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. But
and we believe in you. When you get out of the clink,
yeah,
you clean up. You clean up. We believe in you. Time served.
Again, Harker, thank you so much. This was incredible.
Very welcome.
My goodness. What an interview.
Greatness, sir.
I think the thing that I look at and I'm like, wow, his gear is going to be action figures. Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole's gear that he made them is going to be Ring of Honor action figures. And to me, that is...
Which are out now.
They are at this point, they are out.
Yes.
Hey, guys, go check them out.
JazzwaresVault.com.
Yeah, that's the good little plug ski there for them. But I mean, I think one thing, too, that really stuck with me was just hearing like the sacrifices that he has put his body through with the injuries. And then to look that man in the eyes and say, do you regret it? And him say, no, I don't.
Well, I got one thing in common with Harker Dirge.
What's that?
We're both in comic books, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, he got, that Rob Schamberger story that he ended up on the cover of an independent wrestling comic book. You're on the cover of a comic book.
Yes,
Are you
sir.
on the cover or just in the book?
The cover.
Okay.
And in the book.
Okay. I
One up on your Harker. Top that. Come back, brother.
You just threw down the gauntlet to Harker. That's funny. But again, I said it at the end of that podcast. What Harker Dirge means to me and means to my career, there is no way to fully explain it. There really is not. He has had such a positive impact on my career, which then translates into my life. Like I said, I don't think that I said this in the interview, I don't think that there is a time where I am not on a show and I'm not remembering one thing that Harker taught me, whether it be he directly taught me or I just picked it up along the way. But Harker is truly the GOAT.
The legacy lives on, man. There's not an independent wrestling show where you don't see one person that took something from Harker and implements it today.
Whether indirectly or not. Like
exactly.
You got to look at it and like how truly, like, I don't want to say ahead of his time, but
he was ahead of his time.
Yeah. And it's just, it's crazy. I notice too that I say crazy a lot. I go, that's crazy. The thing that's crazy to me, we'll talk more about that on Paid Show. Hey, speaking of Paid Show, we're going to be rolling into it. We are going to be doing our free agency draft for our premium live event. I have already taken my first pick, and that is Drew McIntyre. So I've got 3 more picks because I'm also going to be dropping someone. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. You can check that out on Patreon. For those of you that are on the Patreon, we'll see you there. For those of you that are not, I've been Dickie. This has been Madrox, and we'll see you down the road on some form of content. Harker, again, thank you so much.